schools were closing and parents were getting calls to come and pick their kids up. So you had all of these variables, I suppose, and as much advice as we were giving individuals to stay at this point, stay in your building that you're at, or go back into your building, at least get to the second floor, because until this threat had, I suppose, abated, the reality is that it is what it is what it is. I would suggest in the future people would just wait, because we are doing our best, certainly taking advice from HMCI. They're seeing the science. They're getting the latest information. They're getting the accurate information on the situation. So it's best to just hold and listen to the experts as opposed to adding, I suppose, to the chaos.
Yes.
And I say that in a very understanding and empathetic way, because I do appreciate, I was sat in my office when it was happening, and we all tend to do one thing, which is survival. And I imagine at that point people were just thinking of survival.
And concern of other family members as well.
Concern of your loved ones. And we're all, I was in that same situation. I was checking in, seeing my wife and children. My children are in school as well, so appreciate that. But certainly as far as advice I would give, I would say, because if you can imagine, put it this way, we had a situation where you've potential threat of a tsunami, and you've got the entire Georgetown was gridlock, and if we had a tsunami, I don't know what would have happened. Yes, yeah. So it's best to just listen to the experts. The information is being sent out there from the experts who's actually watching the science, and they're seeing what's happening, and they're getting the latest information out there. And as soon as we got the information or HMCI got the information that all is well, so to speak, as far as a tsunami threat, that information was immediately disseminated out there. So my advice would be just hold where you're at, take the advice of what's coming from the experts, and we'll do as best as we can to feed you that information.
Okay, we're going to take a break for our 8 o'clock news. It is quite possible that Deputy Commissioner may not be with us. I think he has a meeting at this time. But we'll see what happens when we return after the news. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back immediately after the 8 o'clock news.
Studio time now by Foster's is 8 o'clock.
Are you ready for the big game on Sunday, February 2nd? Stop by your local Foster's and stock up on party supplies and game day food to keep your crew going for 4 quarters of American football greatness. Need more than snacks but no time to prepare? Let Foster's cater with platters, prepared dishes, and appetizers to please any palate. With online platters and catering ordering at fosters.ky, it's never been easier to feast on game day.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy, with 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and an Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit ValueMed, more than just a pharmacy. ValueMed Pharmacy is your community care partner for health and wellness needs. We offer convenient prescription processing at the counter and online at value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com, with pickup available at the Walkers Road or Boddentown location. We also accept transfer prescriptions from other pharmacies. More than just a pharmacy, shop ValueMed for personal care and beauty products from trusted brands, perfume and gift sets, Hallmark and greeting cards, baby clothes, footwear, handbags, swimwear, home decor, toys, school supplies, and stationery. And home convalescence aids like wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, canes, and hospital beds. With 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and in Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit ValueMed, more than just a pharmacy.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Island.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. Cayman is recovering today, taking stock and fixing problems that popped up after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake on Tuesday.
For those of you who are feeling that, is that an earthquake, Miss Susan?
But Sterling was on air when it happened, and he's like, "Susan, did you feel that?" And I said, I couldn't talk because it was moving in here.
The earthquake. this.
Earthquake, guys! Earthquake! Earthquake!
Sounds there from some of the many videos that were shared by residents on social media in the hours after the event, which included many aftershocks. And while there were some pretty big sinkholes and a few burst pipes, Premier the Honorable Alton McLaughlin gave thanks that the event wasn't worse.
And I know people are very concerned, very alarmed. I know there has been some structural damage around, including at my own house. But it is with a deep sense of gratitude, really, that I say it does not appear that anyone has been hurt or seriously harmed, and that we have been spared the worst of what could have been a truly devastating ordeal. Let's continue to look after each other and to give God thanks for having spared us.
The earthquake and tsunami warning weren't just scary for adults, they were also pretty scary for some of Cayman's children. Radio Cayman's April Cummings has more.
Bear in mind that a lot of our youngsters have cell phones, so they were seeing and hearing reports of sinkholes and damage and people's fears about being washed away right along with the rest of us. My own daughter, she was relatively fine at school, but later when she got home, she says that's when everything hit her. And she wasn't the only one. A number of the parents that I spoke to said their children were flat out terrified in the aftermath of the earthquake. And that makes sense. They are so unpredictable, we never know when one might strike. Since a lot of our children are out of school today, this could be a really good time to talk to them about how they're feeling. Reassure them that yes, even though it was scary, we are okay now. Any kind of consistent routine you can provide today and in the coming days, that's helpful because children do find security in routines, and experts say that will help them feel safer. Remember that sometimes professional help is needed to help our children process their feelings, not to mention us. In our children, anxiety can manifest itself in a number of ways. They may be experiencing regressive behavior, crying a lot, being clingy, irritable, afraid of being alone. All of that's normal to expect as children, but you as well. If you are managing your stress and fear in a healthy way, they're likely to do the same. April Cummings, Radio Cayman News.
There are several school closures for today as facilities do checks on buildings to make sure they are safe for local children. These closures include all government schools, the University College of the Cayman Islands, First Baptist Christian School, Cayman Prep and High School, St. Ignatius, and St. George's Preschool. And as so many students are out today, the Civil Service will have a flexible attendance policy in effect for all but essential staff. Government offices are set to open today unless individual departments issue a formal notification otherwise. Every effort will be made to deliver government services without interruption, and government says it is grateful for the public's patience at this time. In the meantime, government has a post-earthquake briefing scheduled for 9 a.m. today to update the community on the latest information. Home Affairs Minister, the Honorable Tar Rivers, tells Radio Cayman government is continuing to monitor for aftershocks, of which there were 13 recorded up through 10:15 last night.
Thankfully, no injuries have been reported, and only limited reports of any significant damage to our infrastructure have been received. We continue to monitor the situation and will remain vigilant.
Tuesday night, the Water Authority shut off power to check for potential leaks across the islands. They have since been restoring the power area by area, and as of the latest check, there are still a few areas that remain without service. These include South Sound, South Church Street, Walkers Road, south of Katura as well. The authority says it is working to restore all service to these areas as soon as possible. And that's your latest news. I'm Carsley Fuller from the Radio Cayman Newsroom.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by Value Med Pharmacy, with 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and an Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit Value Med, more than just a pharmacy. Value Med Pharmacy is your community care partner for health and wellness needs. We offer convenient prescription processing at the counter and online at value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com, with pickup available at the Walkers Road or Boddentown location. We also accept transfer prescriptions from other pharmacies. More than just a pharmacy, shop Value Med for personal care and beauty products from trusted brands, perfume and gift sets, Hallmark and greeting cards, baby clothes, footwear, handbags, swimwear, home decor, toys, school supplies, and stationery. And home convalescence aids like wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, canes, and hospital beds. With 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and in Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit Value Med, more than just a pharmacy.
Can you imagine where Cayman runs off renewable energy? We can. Learn how you can join government and be an energy advocate.
Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure's Facebook page to learn more.
Just to let you know, water service has been restored on Fairbanks Road, Liguania Circle, and Olympic Way. Also, water service has been restored from the Hurley's Roundabout up to the Red Bay Primary School, and customers in these areas can open their shut-off valve and should monitor movement of their meter to ensure that there are no leaks. Should there be more aftershocks, further disruptions may be possible. Progress updates will continue. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman Breakfast is back. Yes, Saturday, February 2nd, starting at 7 a.m. at the Lions Community Center. Enjoy a tasty Caribbean breakfast of fried fish and fritters, liver and onions, and ackee and saltfish, starting at only $10, and help support your community. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman supports sight screening, prostate and colon cancer awareness, Miss Teen, spelling bee, and so much more. Get your Caribbean breakfast and support the Lions Club of Grand Cayman in their community efforts happening Saturday, February 2nd, starting at 7 a.m. at the Lions Community Center.
The Weather Report is proudly sponsored by Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
New stock has just arrived at Super Stitch. Now don't take my word for it, drop by and see for yourself. Fresh off the boat, we have loads of fabric, vinyl upholstery fabric, fabric for cushions, outdoor fabrics, and dress fabric. That's not all. Super Stitch has sewing accessories and craft items. Included in the new shipment, you will find sheets, comforters, throw pillows, bath mats, rugs, and curtains for every room in your home. Super Stitch, 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best price in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
So good morning. Let's take a look at the latest weather report. Current temperature is 75 degrees. Relative humidity is 95%. Barometric pressure 29.93 inches and rising. The winds are calm. Overnight low temperature was 68 degrees. Synopsis indicate light and variable winds and smooth seas will continue across the Cayman area for the next 24 hours in association with a slack pressure gradient over the northwest Caribbean. Now, the forecast for today calling for mostly sunny skies with less than a 20% chance of showers and temperatures falling to the upper 60s tonight. Your winds will be light and variable and seas will be smooth with wave heights of less than 2 feet for today and tonight as well. High tide will occur this morning at 11:50, low tide this evening at 6:13. The sun will set this evening at 6:14 and will rise tomorrow morning at a minute after 7. And the outlook is calling for similar weather conditions through Thursday morning. And the forecast for tonight is calling for fair skies with less than a 20% chance of showers.
Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center was a proud sponsor of the Weather Report, your one-stop shop for all of your household items, craft items, jewelry, beads, and decorations, and much more. Call Super Stitch at 949-2833 or email customer care at superstitch.com.ky.
New stock has just arrived at Super Stitch. Now don't take my word for it, drop by and see for yourself. Fresh off the boat, we have loads of fabric, vinyl upholstery fabric, fabric for cushions, outdoor fabrics, and dress fabric. That's not all. Super Stitch has sewing accessories and craft items. Included in the new shipment, you will find sheets, comforters, throw pillows, bath mats, rugs, and curtains for every room in your home. Super Stitch, 39 Pasador Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best price in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
Good morning. We're having some issues with our traffic cameras, but we got some reports from some of you listeners. Coming from the West Bay four-way stop, no issues there. Traffic is flowing pretty good. Light traffic on Northern Roberts Drive, and on Crew Road, traffic is moderate. Of course, it should be a little lighter coming from the east because of school's out. And on North Sound Road, moderate flow of traffic. That's very latest of traffic. And if you see any accidents or incidents on Cayman's roads, give us a call here at Radio Cayman, 949-6998.
Do you ever have those days when you have to get a super early start, or you're out late and want something fresh and healthy to eat? Subway has now opened their 4th 24-hour location for you early birds and night owls. Subway at West Shore Center on 7 Mile is now open 24 hours. So now you can grab any of Subway's fresh menu items any time of the day at 4 convenient locations. West Shore Center 7 Mile, Countryside in Savannah, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers West Bay. Subway. Eat fresh.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
For the health of it, Radio Cayman's premier health show is brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy, the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association, Holy Cross Hospital,
Cayman Fertility Center,
and eatingclean.com.
This is For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
Excuse me, I noticed you from afar.
Really? Me?
Well, not you. The KFC sandwich you're eating?
Oh, Zinger.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be funny.
No, it's called the Zinger Sandwich. Crunchy, juicy, 100% chicken breast, crisp lettuce, sweet mayo on a seeded bun with a little zing. KFC's chicken is not factory breaded, frozen, and refried like the Burger Boys. Customize your KFC Zinger and dip it in barbecue sauce.
Wow, now I'm starting to notice you too.
KFC, it's finger licking good.
Do you stand for Christian family values? Do you support Caymanian democracy? If you answered yes, then join Cayman Cause in association with the Christian Association of Civics, Cayman Ministers Association, and Conference of the Seventh-day Adventists on Sunday, February the 2nd from 5 to 6:30 p.m. at the Legislative Assembly in Georgetown. Learn the truth about the recent appeals court ruling and its impact on the marriage laws and Cayman society. Speakers in 2985 or email caymancause@gmail.com. Stand for Christian Values 2020, Sunday, February the 2nd from 5 to 6:30 p.m. at the Legislative Assembly in Georgetown.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're discussing the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that rocked the Cayman Islands and other surrounding jurisdictions yesterday as well. Earlier we had Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Kurt Walton, in the studio with us. We also have Mr. Simon Boxall, who's the Awareness and Communications Officer at Hazard Management Cayman Islands as well. Mr. Walton has left us because he has a very important meeting, commander's meeting to attend at the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service as well. I did receive one WhatsApp message. It was actually addressed to Mr. Walton, but I believe, Mr. Boxall, that the information that is being shared and questions that are being asked are certainly issues that Hazard Management Cayman would normally deal with as well. So I'll read it, and it says, "Good morning, Mr. Connor and guest. The question of concern is from a Bordentown resident. In the event this tsunami had arrived with force in the afternoon, where would the residents go for high ground?" My further comment is that the only high ground we could go would have been the unfinished hurricane shelter in Koto ground. Why isn't that building completed? And there's a little bit of political thing that I won't add to it. And then the other part of the comment and question had to do with, do you think it would be a good thing to have loud sirens installed at each district police station to warn people immediately on the notification of these events? Says, yesterday was was chaos as this event came like a thief in the night, which earthquakes normally do. It's not like you get a advance warning, in terms of similar to a hurricane. Yeah. But so the questions, high ground in Bordentown, and we prepared for it, and the one that was directed to the Deputy Commissioner in relation to having sirens, not only necessarily at police stations, but strategic points throughout the island as well.
Yes, thank you for that question, and I think they're both valid questions. I think I'll start with the sirens first.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely see value in a national emergency notification system, and we have been looking at the various options. One of them was sirens. We've looked also at the regional experience, like British Virgin Islands, which lost their system of sirens. They installed them. They lost most of them in the hurricanes of 2017, Irma and Maria.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a very salty environment, and we looked at the cost, which was sort of approaching, I think, over $1 million, and the possible ongoing costs of maintenance of the systems with that salt and the cost of replacing it, keeping it up and running. And though there's certainly value to having a siren system, and it's hard to put a price on people's lives and safety and so on, we took a look at other options as well. And what we felt was the ideal system for Cayman, because increasingly everybody's dependent on cell phones, is what's known as a cell broadcast system, where directly the message comes off the tower. It's much faster than SMS, and it blankets everybody, even people off the cruise lines. So that's actually phase 3 we're working towards. We've already done phase 1, which is the radio interrupt system, which we actually used effectively yesterday to get messages out to the public. But we felt the cost and the reliability and the ongoing maintenance issues of the siren system, while it may be appropriate and we believe suitable for certain locations, like the wholesale fuel distribution places, where we had the Sol fire and so on, rolling out a sort of island-wide, or all 3 islands, in fact, just was financially not feasible. In terms of the problem with where people should go, we recognize Cayman is on average, Grand Cayman, 7 feet above mean sea level. So it's a huge problem both for tsunami and hurricane, our number one threat to life and property. And we believe the possibility of an incoming tsunami, while it's highly unlikely that it's going to be very damaging, the possibility does exist, and also there's a distinct possibility of the hurricane storm surge. We don't have much time in a tsunami. If we have a very large earthquake in our vicinity, we saw yesterday that the shaking was at 2:10 p.m. and the wave would have arrived in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman 11 minutes later. So it's traveling fast. What we ask people to do, because there are certain parts of Cayman where there really aren't very many multi-story buildings that are made out of reinforced concrete, but think about where you live in relation possibly to those structures. If there is no higher ground in your area, if you're based on the coast in Bordentown, think about where you would go. And as the caller said, the church, which is actually proceeding and moving ahead, is going to be complete in 2020 as a shelter. Obviously a church as well, but it's going to provide shelter space. But there's definitely some areas where there's significant vulnerability because there just aren't that many elevated structures.
Precisely, yes.
So, what we would recommend is just trying to get away from the coast as far as you can, but it's still a vulnerability. It's really a threat that hasn't, or a vulnerability that hasn't really been fully addressed, and it's something we have to look at. We're looking at quite a lot of vulnerable communities in Cayman. You've got low-lying areas like swamp. All over Cayman there are,
But how do we then advise persons that live in those areas? Do we rely on community groups? Because we're seeing various community groups, organizations being set up for safety purposes. Do we train them? Do we get that information, out to them?
I do
in
think
terms
that
of what they should do in the event in the event of it, so that everyone knows, well, this is what I should do, rather than making individual decisions. Should I go here or should I go there?
Yeah, I think that the public education component is important, and it was really great to see video of school children getting underneath tables, things that we've been discussing over the years, and it was a fairly automatic reaction, I think, for a lot of the children in the schools. And we do have these community emergency response teams, like you pointed out, and we're continuing to try to grow and evolve that program. We're going to have a team established in Little Cayman in March. But at the end of the day, I still think as a family, as an individual, you've got to look at where you live, where you sleep, where you work, and what your options are if you've got 5 minutes, 10 minutes to make yourself as safe as you possibly can be. And it may be possible that you're just living in an area where there's just really no elevated ground or no big buildings. And that's an issue. You still got to just do the best you can, but it's a problem.
Which is what makes the issue that I'm going to ask you to repeat, the protocols that you follow, how the information that is received by the Cayman Islands from the USG, what's called USGS,
right,
and the Pacific Center. It is so important for people to understand where you're getting your information from, what information that you're getting, so that it reinforces their confidence that what is being conveyed in the Cayman Islands is not a knee-jerk reaction to the situation, but well thought out, well analyzed, based on the information that is being received, and that information that you're receiving is coming from the data that is being collected somewhere else. Because if people then have that confidence in that information, then we're likely to see them making knee-jerk reactions and certainly being more confident in the information that is being given out. For instance, Deputy Commissioner Kurt Walton said once he received that information from you in relation to the possibility of a tsunami afterwards, then he was able to go out and reassure people that the possibility was practically nil at that point.
Right. Well, we are connected, Cayman Islands, to the top scientific establishments in the world for tsunamis and earthquakes. So there are three focal points in the Cayman Islands for tsunamis, and that's Department of Public Safety Communications, 911, the National Weather Service, and Hazard Management Cayman Islands. And we get our messages directly from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center for tsunamis. We also get our data for earthquakes from the United States Geological Survey, or USGS. We also have our own network of seismographs here, and we have a sea level monitoring gauge, which delivers signals to satellites, and it's also got a radar component to it. So the way it worked yesterday, people all across all three islands felt violent shaking at 2:10 p.m. The initial notification that comes out from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center is a computer-generated message based on initial location and magnitude. So that came out at 2:17 p.m., 7 minutes after the event, and it initially suggested it was a 7.3 magnitude event. Again, this is computer generated. Within a few minutes, hazard management, I think within 3 minutes, hazard management got information out. And the first message is fairly simple. It just says a large event has occurred and there's a possibility of a tsunami occurring within a certain distance. So that message came out from hazard management. And then shortly after that, about 2:24, the sort of first message that had been reviewed by a seismologist came out from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. And that is providing arrival times for the waves. So that was the first time we were actually aware, okay, Cayman could be looking at an incoming tsunami, and we know what time it could be hitting our coastline.
Yes.
The third and subsequent messages from the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center are all based on actual readings from these sea level monitoring gauges, and there's a whole network throughout the Caribbean. Ours was pretty much the first one that was triggered because we were one of the closest points to it. So that information is actually then relayed out to all the other disaster management offices and things around the region, so they become aware. Jamaica actually put out something through their Met Office saying, yes, Cayman has been impacted by they said 2-foot tsunami. Our gauge, the actual reading was 1.5 foot sea level rise. And at the United States Geological Survey, we got the first confirmation that it was actually a 7.7 a little bit later at 2:34 p.m. So they have a big team of scientists, seismologists, and they confirm, no, in fact, the initial message from PTWC was slightly off. It wasn't a 7.3, it was actually a 7.7.
But it's still within the ballpark.
Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, normally they're fairly accurate. The initial computer-generated notification as well. So we were getting messages out, but we were able to tell the public quite quickly, within 4 minutes of getting a message from the PTWC, that the threat was real. We were looking at the possibility of a wave impacting us. We knew when it was due to arrive in Little Cayman and Cayman-Brac. It's the first wave, because there are actually a series of waves. Tsunamis are. So we got the message out pretty quickly. The trouble is with tsunamis, if you're very close to where the actual epicenter of the earthquake occurred, it can hit you so quickly that, even these big scientific institutions can't get you the data quicker. So you've almost got to react yourself and not wait for the notice from disaster management offices or anywhere. You've just got to say, okay, that was a huge earthquake. I need to get away from the shore if that's where I'm at, So we try to reinforce that message, and we do it in schools, and we go to some offices and government agencies and tell people, don't necessarily wait. Just move inland away from the shore, evacuate vertically. But definitely it's based on science, it's based on a system that is utilized not just in Cayman, but throughout the region and the world.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, I want to go back to the whole idea of getting to higher ground, even in a building, and how does that conflict with the whole idea that you want to be outside of a building, because there's always the possibility that may have been a 7.3, but it could have been a larger one behind that as well. And then, how do you work that out as well? Yeah. Yes, a huge issue. Yeah. So, folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. The discussion will continue with Mr. Simon Boxall.
2020 means perfect vision. And if you have your sights set on driving a new hybrid, then the time is now to check out the new RAV4 and CHR. Just two of the many hybrid models that Vamped is bringing to Cayman. Whether you're looking for a smoother and quieter way of driving or want a car that maximizes fuel efficiency while minimizing emissions, there are lots of ways a new hybrid from Vamped can make the difference in your life. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries without being plugged in. So focus your 2020 vision on a new hybrid from Vamped Motors, and we will see you through. Come to Vamped, home of the hybrid, located on Walkers Road.
Cayman Turtle Center is happy to report that the center is operational and will open as usual today, and that all of their animals and staff are safe. They will resume regular hours, opening at, they opened at 8 this morning and will close at 5 p.m. today. The freshwater lagoon and water slide would likely reopen at around 9 a.m. today once chemical rebalancing is done. Also, the saltwater snorkeling lagoon will be closed all day today while teams work to make it ready for tomorrow, January 30th reopening. They anticipate all of the other features will be operational at the Cayman Turtle Center.
Preventing dengue is as simple as preventing mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent, wear protective clothing, and stay indoors during early dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Control the places around you where mosquitoes breed. Remove stagnant water in outdoor and household settings. As a weekly habit, persons should change the water in vases, clear the water in saucers under potted plants, and ensure air conditioner drip trays are free of stagnant water. Outdoor objects capable of holding water should be kept empty and preferably disposed of or put into dry storage if not used. These include open bottles and tins, watering cans, buckets, empty paint tins, and old vehicle tires. Do your part to control the spread of dengue. The dengue virus is an infectious disease transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms may come on as early as 4 days or as late as 3 weeks following an infection. There is no vaccine or specific medication to treat dengue. Symptoms of dengue include high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, joint and muscle pain, and rash. If persons have any of these symptoms, they should go to the nearest health center or hospital. It is advised to drink lots of liquids and avoid medication that contains aspirin.
I'm sure you know, but just in case, all government schools remain closed. We have also received notice that the following private schools are closed: Triple C, St. Ignatius, First Baptist, also Montessori, all closed. Wesleyan Christian Academy and Hope Academy is closed, as well as Cayman Prep and UCCI.
System 1 loaded. 1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we go back. Just to let you know that our internet is up and running. So if you want to email us at For the Record, one word, For the Record at candw.ky. If you have any observations, if you have any questions, we're discussing the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that hit the Cayman Islands yesterday afternoon around about 2:10. That discussion is taking place with Mr. Simon Boxall, who's the Awareness and Coordinating Officer at Hazard Management Cayman Islands. And earlier in the show, we also had Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Kurt Walton, with us. I believe we have a caller. Let's go to two calls. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC, and good morning to Mr. Boxwell.
Good morning, sir. Morning. How are you?
I'm not too bad. This is Kenneth Bryan. Are you guys hearing me well?
Yes, we are.
Hearing you fine.
Okay. I want to first say thank you to the hazard management team, particularly Mr. Boxwell, in respect to everything they did yesterday. I think there's a lot for us to learn from that exercise, and I know you guys are going to be discussing that this morning. And myself and the opposition will be on the radio hopefully Friday morning to discuss our thoughts and views about it and what we can learn and what we should do moving forward. But I want to take this opportunity just to remind my constituents of Georgetown Central that though most of the danger has passed, with a shock like this, I think it's important that we check on our neighbors, just to make sure that, with this kind of shake. Hello, good morning. You there?
Yes, we are. Yeah, we are.
Okay. Just to check on our neighbors. I've heard reports of persons with, cracks in their homes and the like. Just like the government is doing with the government buildings and the schools, check your homes, make sure everybody's okay. Sometime, like all day yesterday, I was trying to get around to different places to see if everybody was all right because the phone system was down. We also have to make sure that for those who are of low income, to check to make sure their houses are safe, and this may be a costly exercise if there's anything damaged to their home, to make sure they're structurally safe for them to sleep in. So do me a favor, be our brother's keepers and our sister's keeper, to just check on your neighbors, particularly the seniors, and making sure that their houses, not only their own safety, but their houses, because they have to go to sleep in those houses every night moving forward. OC, before I run off your show, because I know you got a lot more to talk about, I want to invite the listening public that on Friday morning, myself and members of the Seafarers Association will be located in the morning from 6 o'clock in the morning, trying to help the association get rid of their 2020 calendars, which celebrates the ABs of the seamanship era, able-bodied men who serve their time at sea. You know that the association sells these calendars to raise funds to help the association, and they're still left with over 500 calendars, and they're only $10, very educational, tells a lot about our history. It'd be great for kids to see and read, and also tells us to keep connected to our culture. So myself and some of those members will be up early in the morning, so when you're driving, we're kind of stuck going to that 3-4 miles an hour in traffic. If you just have an extra $10, we'd be happy to give you one of those beautiful calendars that you can either donate to somebody or keep for yourself or share with your kids. And about by Jose Gas Station Road and the roundabout and Bobby Thompson in between there, where usually you would see the Compass people with the papers. Yes. We're going to share that space with them. It's only $10, really great calendar, and we want to get rid of them before the end of January so people can maximize the use of the calendar.
Please reserve 2 for me.
I'll definitely take one as well, Mr. Brown.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So it's only $10, and I'll see you guys on Friday morning.
Definitely. Look forward to it.
Members will be there on Friday. Okay? Thank you so much. God bless.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next caller. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Orrett Connor.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
Okay, and good morning, Mr. Boxer.
Morning, sir. How are you doing?
Okay. Well, yesterday afternoon I was working on the beach, right behind Al Fresco restaurant. And after the earthquake stopped, about not too long after that, I would say about 20 minutes afterwards, 20 to 25 minutes, a wave came in. And it was glass calm before that. And a wave came in, and the water came all the way up to the beach chairs. And as the wave went back out into the ocean, the water disappeared for a distance from offshore. We thought we were going to have a bigger wave coming in afterwards, but we didn't. I think it was because the earthquake wasn't stronger and it wasn't longer. And the home next to Al Fresco's restaurant that was just built, they have a swimming pool on top of their roof. and the water poured out of that pool towards the ocean like a waterfall, which shows me that the island was actually tilted towards the drop-off. So I'm just thankful no one was injured and that the earthquake wasn't any stronger, any closer, or any longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller, for that as well. Any comments, Mr. Boxall?
Thank you. Yes, well, we did definitely register a tsunami wave of about a foot. The shaking, it was sort of east-west lateral shaking, so that would be right that you saw it coming towards the drop-off, towards the west. People were seeing that in their swimming pools all across the Cayman Islands, also the canals and things like that as well. So yes, we were fortunate, that there wasn't submarine landslides that sort of directed the energy of the water more directly towards us as well. And that it was fairly far away as well was another, and that it wasn't stronger, as you pointed out. So yeah, I agree with everything you said on that. Reverting back to Mr. Brown's point as well, I would say please do check on your neighbors, and it's understandable that people feel anxiety when these sorts of things occur. It's a perfectly normal reaction. And we're likely to experience probably some ongoing aftershock tremors and earthquake activity over the coming days and possibly next few weeks. And possibly some of them may be strong, probably almost certainly not as strong as that. That was an enormous event, one of the strongest recorded in the last 100 years in the Caribbean region. So the likelihood that there's going to be an even more powerful one, but we're seeing some of the energy being transferred a little bit further down towards the south of Grand Cayman. The event occurred about 80 miles to the east of Grand Cayman, so we're seeing a cluster of tremors occurring to the south of us. So, we don't think the likelihood of a damaging event now is very high, but people may continue to feel for the next few days and weeks some tremors. So, if you are, hopefully people start getting about their normal business again, going back to sort of cooking and working. But if you're finding it difficult to handle the sort of anxiety related to it, then, there's people at HSA who can help. There's trained counselors, and we're going to get through it. It's been amazing, I think, how quickly, we got 6 cruise ships in town today, 20,000 passengers. The Water Authority have been working through the night to get the water back up. We see the sinkholes getting filled in. Life's going to go back to normal, but that sense of anxiety is a perfectly normal reaction. It's probably felt by a lot of people. So if you can check in on your neighbors, the older folk, and your family members, I think that was a great suggestion.
Now, the term used about walking laterally, can you explain that to like, say, walking on the beach?
That was laterally as sort of a sideways. We're on the North American plate, and below us is the Caribbean plate. So it's a sort of transform plate boundary line where a strike slip where they go side by side.
Okay.
So we shifted probably. I don't know exactly. We haven't got the measurement yet, but maybe we moved away from Jamaica a bit. We'll get the precise distance later on, but so the rupture occurred side to side. So a lot of the energy went east to west, kind of in this elongated thing. It directed up towards southeastern Cuba and then off to the west a little bit. So while we definitely felt a lot of the shaking, of course, because it was a fair distance away from us, we didn't get the full shaking, and you can actually see how the actual shaking sort of stretches out in an easterly, westerly direction.
Okay, got you. Yeah, got you. Well, you said we moved away a little bit from Jamaica. I hope it doesn't affect the cost of airfares between here and Jamaica as a result that the airlines don't do any major calculations or anything like that. We're going to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
I remember playing at 7 Mile Beach as a boy, eating mango by the sea, learning how to snorkel. My mother, she worked so hard to provide for our family so that we could have those moments. Seeing her age has been tough. That strong, capable woman, now in need of daily support, it's my time to be strong for her.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of the careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
2020 means perfect vision, and if you have your sights set on driving a new hybrid, then the time is now to check out the new RAV4 and CHR. Hold up. Just two of the many hybrid models that Vamped is bringing to Cayman. Whether you're looking for a smoother and quieter way of driving or want a car that maximizes fuel efficiency while minimizing emissions, there are lots of ways a new hybrid from Vamped can make the difference in your life. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries without being plugged in. So focus your 2020 vision on a new hybrid from Vamped Motors, and we will see you through. Come to Vamped, home of the hybrid, located on Walkers Road.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes, Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Count on us, Cayman Limited. Count on us, Cayman Limited. Let me see where I can find this in this book.
Count on us, Cayman Limited? What are you talking about, Susie Q?
Nita, Count on us, Cayman Limited. Let me tell you, it is a small, robust service company in Cayman. They offer bookkeeping services, property management, and that's not all. They also offer a variety of other services, such as customs brokerage and Cayman auto and tech services.
Then it sounds like I don't have to run all over town like a chicken with its head cut off to get my business taken care of. I can just call. What's that place called again, Sue?
It's called Count on Us Cayman Limited. They take the time to understand your business. If you need more information, you can give them a call at 623-6941 or you can call 323-3995. And if you need to email them, the email address is info@countonuscaymanlimited.com.
All are invited to attend the 83rd Annual Convention of the Church of God Full Gospel Hall, Georgetown, from February 2nd through to the 9th. Daily prayer meetings at 6:30 a.m., preaching and praise at 10:30 a.m., and evangelistic services nightly at 7:15. Sundays begin with Sunday school at 9:45 a.m., followed by morning worship at 10:45, a youth service at 3 p.m., and evangelistic services at 7:15. Come and enjoy a warm Christian fellowship, praying, praising, and singing with church family at the 83rd Annual Convention of the Church of God Full Gospel Hall, Georgetown, on the waterfront from the 2nd to 9th of February. Free meals served daily and transportation is available by calling 926-8180.
For the record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're discussing the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that rocked the Cayman Islands yesterday. That discussion has taken place with Mr. Simon Boxall, who's the Awareness and Communications Officer at Hazard Management Cayman Islands. Ms. Susan, do we have any calls? We have one caller. We're going straight to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning to you, Mr. Connor, and good morning, Mr. Boxall.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, Quincy.
Yes, Quincy Brown here, and again, we're thankful to be alive. I mean, the headlines, the story could be a lot worse this morning. Thankfully, we got a shake. We're shaken, but we're still standing tall. So, thankful for the information Radio Cayman was able to disseminate. Hazard management and your work, Mr. Boxall, all very important, keeping us informed. It was a very scary experience. I was actually in a 2-story building in Prospect, and I was on a phone call. I was communicating with someone on Cayman Brac, and we felt the swaying. And the first thing that comes to your mind is, I'm having a dizzy spell, or my head is starting to swim. Is my blood pressure dropping? Is my sugar level dropping? But once it prolongs and other people are feeling it, you realize very quickly, no, this is an earthquake. So I immediately realized what was happening. remained calm. Of course, we know the drop, hold, position. But because we were in a two-story building and the building was swaying kind of rapidly and it seemed like an eternity, we decided to come downstairs and get to an open area that was safe. But what I had never seen before, because I have experienced earthquakes before, the very first one I experienced was incidentally in Radio Cayman. In 2004, after Hurricane Ivan, in September, there was an earthquake in November. And I remember being in Norma McField's office, walking from her office to the newsroom, and we felt a strong sway of the Radio Cayman building. So that was 2004. So I had experienced...
That was, December 14th.
That was December 14th. Correct me. Thank you. Not November. December of 2004.
You're right there. 2004, right after Ivan.
Right after Ivan. So we were all in that newsroom, and we felt it. It was quite scary.
Mm-hmm.
But what I had never experienced before, Mr. Boxall and Mr. Connor, was once we got outside, the ground, the grass, the sand was actually moving like waves on an ocean. I had never seen that before. I mean, you would have thought we were on a boat in the sea watching waves. That's how the ground was moving. So we got away from that area because we feared the ground could open at any moment and we all fall in. So it's a good thing it wasn't stronger. It didn't last any longer. It was some 80 miles away. You imagine if it was closer and lasted longer. I think it is important, though, that we separate fact from fiction. We need to be smart enough to listen to the scientists, not the soothsayers and prophets. Because you have prophets in this country crying down damnation, prophets and soothsayers and mental health patients wanting to see doctors arrested and crying down earthquakes are coming. Well, I don't pay that in a mind. If I want salvation for my soul, I will listen to the preacher. But if I want information on hurricanes, earthquakes, global warming, climate change, I listen to the scientists. That's what we need to do. Again, thank God we're safe. And I'm very proud of the teachers that handled themselves in schools yesterday, because I got a lot of good reports from primary schools where students immediately listened to their teachers, get under your desk, and of course they were scared, but there was a sense of calm in various primary schools yesterday. So I thought that was very good. And of course I know hazard management and your team, you're always going into schools preparing students for these things. It's very difficult to prepare. We can prepare for a hurricane. We cannot for an earthquake. That can happen at any time. So, again, a very scary experience. A lot of potholes or drop holes, whatever they call them, opened up. But again, we're alive. I don't think we will always be so fortunate moving ahead. But we prepare for the worst. We hope for the best. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you very much, Quincy, for that. Another caller. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record. They didn't hang in there.
No.
Back to you, Mr. Simon.
No, I appreciate Quincy's comment. There are things we can do to prepare. A little bit like, I appreciate Quincy's point, though. You don't have any advance notice with an earthquake. But we can look around our house where we work, and there are things that could potentially fall on top of you. We saw in supermarkets, obviously, we saw in stores and in various places people saw probably pictures coming down. And, we can secure things well to walls. We can make sure that air conditioning units are, properly supported in the roof.
Mm-hmm.
We can look around, where we work and primarily where we sleep, and figure out how we can try to reinforce anything that could potentially fall on top of you. And some people are even like gas cylinders. They make sure that that they're not rigid, the pipes, and so on and so forth. So, and building on higher solid ground rather than possibly on sometimes sandy, unless you use really good proper foundations and so on, and pin the house to bedrock.
Okay. Want to share this one with you quickly, because you may have to leave us. There is a possibility that there may be a press briefing at our conference at 9 o'clock, and I believe if that occurs, Radio Cayman will be taking it live, so we will interrupt For the Record at that point. This person says, has HCMI considered the fact that we are not locally in control of the local mobile telephone network, as shown by the outage in Jamaica last year.
Well, it's a very interesting point. And we do think about those sorts of things. We have a backup satellite communication system through the governor's office, and there is a vulnerability there. I think the question would be more appropriately probably directed to OFREG and ICTA, but it's an issue we're looking at, and how could we become more resilient. It's a possibility, for example, if a very strong earthquake occurred in Jamaica, like a repeat of the Port Royal event in 1692, that it could knock out our internet, and we've become very dependent on it. There are also subsea cables that connect, and a couple of times in the last 100 years, large earthquakes have resulted in slides, slips, and slumps in the marine environment, and actually a couple of times those cables have been broken, snapped. So, we are in the business of looking at vulnerability, risk, how can we make ourselves more resilient, and it's certainly something on the radar, and we've got an emergency support team specifically tasked with sort of communications-related issues. It's so tied to our economy now, communications, that it would be irresponsible for us not to consider those threats.
Okay, we're going to go to headline news, and folks, I just want, we're going to continue to talk now. Ms. Susan, you ready for? Okay. We're going to go to our 9 o'clock headline news. We just want to remind you that if that press conference starts and Radio Cayman carries it live, will carry it live, that we will have an interruption here. Meanwhile, we will continue with the show, headline news, and we have one caller on hold after. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have on Ireland.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
For today's biggest news. Access.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
Government offices are open today, but several schools are closed in the wake of a 7.7 magnitude earthquake, which struck on Tuesday just after 2 p.m. School closures include all government schools, the University College of the Cayman Islands, First Baptist Christian School, Cayman Prep and High School, St. Ignatius, and St. George's Preschool. Government is allowing civil servants a flexible schedule today, as they may not have been able to make arrangements for child care at such short notice. In the meantime, government is hosting a post-earthquake briefing today. It's taking place this hour. Remarks will be coming from Hazard Management Cayman Islands as well as top government officials. Make sure to stay with Radio Cayman as we bring you the latest information. And Palestinians have dismissed U.S. President Donald Trump's new Middle East peace plan as a, quote, conspiracy. The plan envisages a Palestinian state and the recognition of Israeli sovereignty over West Bank settlements. Mr. Trump said Jerusalem would remain Israel's, quote, undivided capital, but the Palestinian capital would include areas of East Jerusalem. Those are your headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
For the record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, we have Mr. Simon Boxall, who is the Awareness and Communications Officer at Hazard Management Cayman. We're discussing the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that rocked the Cayman Islands yesterday around about 2:10 in the afternoon, and certainly affected everyone on the Cayman Islands, not only on the Cayman Islands, but off the Cayman Islands as well. There were people who were actually checking in to board flights to come to the Cayman Islands when they got messages, and certainly had concerns about their family members, and more anxious than to get home to see exactly, what had taken place as well. I believe we have a caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen. Just 2 quick questions for you, right?
Sure.
There was a lot of activity inside of the canals, right? During the storm. Not storm, but after the earthquake. Was there any benefit to the canals with the surge surge that we saw in the canals with boats kind of going mad and that kind of stuff? And if there were, are there any concerns about the filling of these canals along West Bay Road? Can you answer those two questions for me, please?
Certainly. Good questions.
Yeah, interesting questions. We do know one vessel sank. It was tied quite tightly, and I guess with the slumping back and forth, which you may have been referring to there, it was noticeable slumping in the canals as well. The water came over the hull because it was tightly tied to the dock, I guess, as the water level lowered and then came up, so it filled with water. We do notice, that even in, a 10 to 15 knot wind, you'll see the level of the canal is significantly higher because the wind has the capacity to push quite a lot of water. In terms of our vulnerability to tsunamis and hurricane storm surge, we don't really consider that it's, while it's allowing the water to further go into the land, it's not actually probably noticeably increasing risk, I wouldn't say, but I think it's an interesting question. It's something that needs to probably be considered further. But typically they're attached to the North Sound, which is not like a high energy environment. So it's not like you can't have those massive storm-driven waves typically coming into those canals. You might experience the storm surge, and as we saw in Hurricane Ivan, in fact, as the Hurricane Ivan passed, all the water got pushed from the eastern side of North Sound up by Cayman Kai. In fact, at one point, apparently, there was no water in the bay in Cayman Kai. Up by one point, it all got pushed down, so it went right down the canals, and people experienced 10-foot surge on that West Bay Peninsula. It probably still would have gone inland even without the canals.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting question. I don't think it necessarily has a dramatic increase in our risk threshold, either in a tsunami or a hurricane.
Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Miss Susan, you want to try to squeeze in another caller?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take a commercial break now then. Right? Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, formerly known as Professional Pharmacy, would like to thank the Cayman communities for their loyal support these past 18 years. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care. Thorough background checks and follow-up consultations is only the beginning. Your safety is our concern. Our staff are respected healthcare professionals whose job requires careful and precise calculations. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, where we prepare to provide exceptional care. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we care about your health.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on ensuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
The Lions Club of Grand Cayman Breakfast is back. Yes, Saturday, February 2nd, starting at 7 a.m. at the Lions Community Center. Enjoy a tasty Caribbean breakfast of fried fish and fritters, liver and onions, and ackee and saltfish, starting at only $10, and help support your community. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman supports sight screening, prostate and colon cancer awareness, Miss Teen, spelling bee, and so much more. Get your Caribbean breakfast and support the Lions Club of Grand Cayman in their community efforts happening Saturday, February 2nd, starting at 7 a.m. at the Lions Community Center.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record in the studio. Mr. Simon Boxall, the Awareness and Communications Officer at Hazard Management Cayman. We're discussing the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that rocked the Cayman Islands yesterday. We have one caller on hold, so we're going to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, Susie.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you, Rambo. Good morning, Mr. Boxer. Good morning. Mr. Susie, I'll be fast to be afraid.
Okay.
Yesterday afternoon, I called talk show, right? Prior before the earthquake, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right? My cousin from Brock called me. Right, to confirm that me on the airwaves. I said, that was me. And within that 20 minutes, right, there was a grasshopper by my split unit, my room, you know. Try to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I jumped about 2 times, you know. Just a minute before the earthquake struck, you know. And my heart pulsating, pounding, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, the trauma, right? All the drawers in my kitchen open up. In my house, get me wrong, my house is 3 years old now, brand new. Okay? And Mr. Boxer, like, in my I was taking maths in school, right?
Yes.
Whole number, like, say for instance, 0.5 or a half, right? If you got it off, that would be like an 8. 8 magnitude earthquake.
Yep.
You see where I'm from?
Yep.
Because we in Chula, like you say, like in the center, it's ever powerful, and especially the sport hemisphere, ever powerful. And thank God it came on the limestone. It came on night. That sediment. I'd be a factor towards that.
Okay.
And for like I say, you know, the GS meeting with the premier, with Donna Bush and your co-worker, Mr. Boxer.
Yes, Mr. Danny Coleman. Yep.
Yes, exactly. Especially the premier, Mr. Stallion.
Yes, the premier too.
How you said, like yourself, rudimentary and fundamentally.
Yes.
You calm in principle, right? Nobody was panicking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, caller, for that.
Interesting. The grasshopper. I mean, there's talk of the Indonesian ones, the elephants, reacting. Dogs sometimes bark, behaving unusually, getting into bathtubs, and possibly feeding it a bit more prior to us. But it was very large. As you go from one magnitude to another, it's logarithmic, so it's actually 32 times the amount of energy released. So if you go from a 6 to an 8, it's actually 1,000 times more energy released. So it's a big event. It's 7.7. It's huge.
Okay. What we've done is we've closed the phone lines off because there's going to be a post-earthquake press briefing, and we may have to switch over to that very quickly once we're aware, because Radio Cayman will be carrying it live. Meanwhile, I will share one message that we received, and it has to do with Clifton Hunter High School and the procedures there. And the person writes, just want to give you an upfront account of the happenings at Clifton Hunter yesterday. Of course, I was in the administration area where the earthquake struck, as usual. All emergency procedures were followed, as we are trained to do. The main problem I see that needs to be addressed is parents need to not come to the school to pick up their kids. All 800 plus were very safe on the second floor of our academies. I know they have given government, and in particular our premier, utter hell for Clifton Hunter. But let me tell you, at no time yesterday would I have rather been anywhere else due to the strength of the buildings. I am truly thankful. And then they go on to say that parents need to ask themselves, do we want to place our children in greater danger by being on a road prior to an all clear being given? And they wanted me to share that with our listening audience as well. Because I'm not sure. Okay, we're going live now to the post earthquake press briefing. And if that is over before 10 o'clock, then we will certainly return on For the Record. So, folks, please stay tuned.
Thank you.
was impressed at how quickly our systems got to grips with what was happening and got messages out. So I think we should all be very grateful for that. We should also, I think, take credit for the fact that we got the islands up and running again very quickly. The port is open, the airport is open, we have 6 cruise liners here today. Water very quickly restored in some areas and checks going on. So we've done an awful lot very quickly to get back to normal. Often in these crises, keep calm and carry on is the mantra, and I saw a lot of that in action yesterday, and I think Caymanians and our citizens can be proud of that response. As always in these exercises, you have to evaluate how we did, look at the lessons learned. There were things we did very well. I'm sure there are things we could do differently or do better, and we will be doing that lessons learned exercise, and that should happen after every one of these crises. And my final point is just to say that I do think our crisis management plans are in very good shape. They were tested yesterday and have come out well, and there's more coming. I'm very excited about this new app that we have, which will allow people to download onto their phones and get information even more quickly and directly than we were able to yesterday. And of course we are setting up a new defence regiment for the Cayman Islands, and I think once that is in place, that will also give us another level of disaster preparedness. And the helicopter, I would just thank the crew on the helicopter who were up in the air after half an hour yesterday, again assessing damage and checking for tsunami. So I think there were a lot of positives yesterday, but I recognise it was a difficult day for everyone here and in the sister islands.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to endorse what the governor has said, but also to say that this is an incredible jurisdiction. We didn't lose power. There's been no significant damage at all to any structures of which I'm aware. And although there was significant damage to some of the pipes, the Water Authority, they have worked like Trojans all through yesterday afternoon and all through last night to isolate where the leaks were and to have most of the island now back on water. I know I spent a lot of time trying to calm various people in my constituency and elsewhere, and provide the necessary assurances that it would be business as usual today. Because in a jurisdiction like ours, which is so reliant on financial services and tourism, business continuity is just absolutely critical. And I am really, really proud of the way that we have been able to respond and get things back to normal. Most of the schools are closed, but that is not really because of any identified damage, but out of precautionary measure to ensure that the structures are all sound, and in some cases they didn't have water at the start of the day this morning. But I reckon by tomorrow all of the schools will be back and in business. There is a cautionary note though that I wish to sound. I've thought about how well we would be able to respond to this had this occurred at night. It would have been a very really different situation. And I think we need to do some evaluation, some assessment ourselves, and determine how we would respond if that were to be the case. And the thing with earthquakes, unlike hurricanes, sometimes we have more than a week to prepare for a hurricane. This we don't know at all, and so you're flailing about, quite frankly, to think about how do we respond to this? What do we do? I know some people wondered why we didn't make public statements earlier than the governor and I did, but the truth of the matter is we had to have the necessary information. There is no point, in fact, that it is our duty to ensure that we don't distress people and we don't create panic by putting out statements when we don't have the necessary information. So in the case of an earthquake, you don't know it's happened or it's going to happen until it's actually happened in most instances, and that certainly was the case yesterday. But again, I want to pay tribute. I was there in the command center, seeing how the people from hazard management, Danny and her team, actually responded, and how quickly they were able to get on to the information and to provide it to us and to help us make decisions about what should be said and done. And there are always lessons to be learned from these events, but I do share the governor's view that we are in a very good place in terms of managing hazards in these islands.
Thank you, Premier and Governor. And certainly, as the Minister responsible for Home Affairs, I was there with the Premier and the Governor and Hazard Management team and members of the other emergency responders in the command centre yesterday, right after the incident occurred, obviously. The mobilization was to be commended. I think that certainly, and I want to endorse what has been said before, we are truly a very blessed country. I think it is a testament to so much that we've done and so much effort that has been put in over many years. Our building code, I think, is second to none. The fact that our buildings have withstood such a magnitude, an earthquake of such magnitude, is a testament to that. Obviously, as the Premier said, that the commitment of the government as well as the statutory authorities and private sector agencies that pulled together to make sure that the country was as prepared as possible to deal with the aftermath. I want to thank the Red Cross for making their emergency centre available to the public here on Grand Cayman, and of course Aston Reddy Centre was open in Cayman Brac for the residents of the sister islands. We have, as a government, continued to invest in finding solutions to anticipated problems, and as the Premier said, an earthquake and a sudden onset event such as that is certainly something that we could anticipate, but you never really know when and how it's going to hit or affect the country. So one of the things, obviously, that we've invested in starting from 2018 that we were actually able to test yesterday was the emergency notification system to interrupt, the radio broadcast interrupt. And as far as, reports that we've received from coming out of places like Canada and otherwise, international press that have covered this incident, were very complimentary and praised the efforts that their citizens on the ground experienced when they heard the radio interrupt, the frequent radio interrupts. So to the point that the Governor has said, this is an area that we invested in, we were able to test in a real incident, and going forward, the members of the team at Hazard Management and the other, the Department of Public Safety and Communications and the other emergency responders will be looking to roll out the second phase of this emergency notification interrupt, and that is anticipated to be a mobile app. Danny can speak more to that when she gives more of a detailed overview, but certainly want to echo the thanks that both the Governor and the Premier has indicated to the team at Hazard Management, but all of the emergency responders, including the communications team who are here today, who worked, I know, tirelessly throughout the night to make sure the messages were delivered, and also to ensure that the country was best prepared to be able to respond to what is now the aftermath of a earthquake. We do know the tsunami warning has been lifted, so we're very grateful for that. But into the wee hours of the morning, we experienced aftershocks. I personally felt the aftershock myself, and so we still need to be vigilant about the potential for aftershocks for some time yet. So again, want to thank everyone for listening in, and obviously those of you that are still on the ground making things happen to ensure that the country is back up and running in the most efficient way possible. Want to give thanks and pay homage to everyone in that regard.
Again, thank you everyone involved yesterday. It's been a real team effort over the last, 12, 15, 20 hours. And that's a multi-agency response. So again, we did a partial activation yesterday of the National Emergency Operations Centre, based at Hazard Management as the operations team. The emergency support teams that we actually incorporated in there was the Joint Communications Services, and that's representative across we have representatives from the Governor's Office, from the police services, from tourism, from Hazard Management. Again, making sure we're speaking with one voice is critical, and making sure that that information going out is from a reliable source, and we've had to obviously mitigate any false information going out, and that's always a bit of an issue in these kind of scenarios. I'd just like to give a very brief overview of the time frame that we did yesterday from an operational standpoint. At 2:10, the earthquake was felt. At 2:17, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center issued an alert, and that was at 7.3 magnitude. Now, obviously, we've seen the later alerts had it identified as a 7.7 magnitude, but it was originally registered as a 7.3 magnitude. It wasn't two separate earthquakes, it was one. It was just a different measurement later on. Again, at 2:20, we managed to get our social media feed out, both our Instagram, our Facebook, and our websites. And again, 2:26, the tsunami advisory message came out. So whilst the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center advisory at 2:17 does relay the fact that it's an automated message that relays the fact that a tsunami is possible, that's not verified till later on, until 2:26. At 2:27, obviously the radio alerts were out, so we sent out about 9 radio alerts yesterday. The National Emergency Notification System Phase 1, as the Minister already talked about, again, is the use of the radio interrupt. And again, using 17 radio stations to broadcast that as an interrupt. We activated Joint Communication Services at 2:30, and at 2:48, given the space of where the magnitude epicenter was when we were expecting impact on Georgetown or Grand Cayman. The sister islands would have been before that. But again, it just goes to show the little time frame you have as members of the public to react to these kind of things. And we're really strongly encouraging the public to be aware. We will be potentially experiencing aftershocks for the next couple of weeks. So we've got to make sure everyone's vigilant and knows what to do if by chance we experience this again. We have a lot of information on our website to share with you. And again, we're very happy to talk more about that. The all clear was given at 2:49. We also released a statement at 3:49. We also released a statement at 3:04 saying it's very unlikely, but until we get the all clear from Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, obviously we want to make sure that we're on guard and ready to act. Throughout that, again, obviously the NEAC was partially activated. We had the damage assessment guys working with us, the Human Concerns Cluster, which is shelter management, getting activated. And again, we'd like to give a big shout out to the Red Cross because they've been activated and they'll close at 10 o'clock today. But we sincerely thank them for staying overnight and making sure they're ready to go. Again, a significant thanks goes to the Utilities Emergency Support Team. Again, the very fact that we've had Water Authority working throughout the night, making sure the water's back on, is a really good testament to their ability to act. And again, the utilities is run by the Water Authority, so that incorporates CUC, Cayman Water and so forth. So it's really important, again, that the utilities are back up to running this morning, not only for us to also have a hot shower, but also, there's 6 cruise ships in town today that, again, without water, that poses significant issues. So we're very grateful to all the team. Again, anyone who activated at the National Emergency Operations Centre yesterday, we're very, very, very thankful to them. I'm going to pass over to Mr. Walton now, and we can carry on.
Yes, thank you very much. So for us, obviously, we recognize the first hour or first 30 minutes of such an event of this magnitude and the chaos, as you can imagine, that would have unfolded in front of us. So we had to make some really fast time decisions, and really for us, the 3 key priorities were just simple preservation of life, maintaining public safety, and just looking at all the assessments of damage, and then how we were able to provide that collaboration and working with the HMCI in providing the message, ensuring that messages that were coming out of the center were being properly delivered to members of the public, and done so in a very measured way, because the last thing we wanted to do was to create further chaos. As you can imagine, the traffic chaos in the middle, certainly in the Georgetown Center, was quite challenging. So as because of that, we had our entire traffic unit out with the inspector in charge, and as best as we could, try to clear the roads as best as we could. Priority for us as well was looking at the children, our most vulnerable, and ensuring that we were communicating with the schools in terms of what was happening, and checking on the schools as well as the prison. We weren't sure what was happening there at the time, so we had immediately had our patrol cars in the eastern districts go by the prison and looking at just in terms of security over there, but just ensure the security of everyone there. Obviously, things did not get any better when the information came from the center as far as a potential threat from a tsunami that required careful managing. Thankfully, the helicopter was up shortly after the initial shock. I think we had it up within 10 minutes, which worked out really in our favor in the sense that we were able to have it over the island quickly doing some assessment, but then with the potential threat of a tsunami, we were able to deploy them some 5 miles offshore, and they were able to give us live commentary, and I was able to communicate that in with HMCI. Overall, the whole, it certainly tested our resources. And I want to certainly extend a big thank you to some officers who were off duty and were calling in, volunteering to come in, albeit it was difficult to get in at times because of the traffic situation. But we had officers coming in. In addition to that, officers who would have already been on and due to go off, we extended their stay into the middle of the night. And so as far as resources, we had quite a robust response as far as policing on the ground, just ensuring that law and order was maintained, and we could assess and assist the NRA with assessment of certainly the public roads, public thoroughfare, those areas where we were getting reports coming in of sinkholes, and we wanted to make sure from a public safety perspective that we were there to assess, and where we could provide cones to ensure that public safety was maintained. Overall, we worked through the night and I can safely say that we had a fairly, despite all the aftershocks, we had a fairly quiet night and in terms of business continuity and maintaining law and order.
Good morning, this is for Daniel. We just had some readers who were curious about the actual measurements because it's quite a historically large earthquake for here. So do we have the actual measurements for Cayman itself, for the very first one anyway, the 7.7, because there was another one that appeared to be about 5 o'clock, but which was registered about 6.2, which said the Cayman Islands. So I just wondered whether we had anything for the history books, as it were, for the larger one and what it measured here.
I'm sure we will do. Again, we have it all monitored upstairs at Hazard Management. We can show the actual monitoring station. Just to video, there was actually 14 aftershocks. So one main earthquake and 14 aftershocks so far. Again, there is potential for more aftershocks over the next couple of weeks. So we do ask everyone to be vigilant and make sure that plans are in place. I think one of the issues with the traffic yesterday, again, we have this desperate desire to go to schools, pick up our children and so forth, and of course that's human nature, but we really need to try and avoid that at all costs, especially there's a tsunami warning there. We'll be doing a lot of work, in fact we have been doing work over the last year with the schools, talking about tsunamis and earthquakes and so forth. I think in September last year we did 2,200 schools in the students, that's a lot of schools, students in the space of 2 months. So we'll be doing more of that, in particular I think drills moving forward to make sure they are comfortable. But again, I think it's a really important thing for all families to have a plan, because the chances are you'll be feeling more aftershocks over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Kevin. Go.
Hey, morning, everybody. Danielle, you talked about the radio interrupt. Just confirm for me that this is the first time that that's actually been used in a real-life scenario, and can you tell me how many times it was interrupted and on how many stations?
Okay, so yes, you're right, indeed. We've been testing it every couple of months. We rolled it out about 6 months ago. We've been testing regularly through different means. I believe it's 16 stations. We are checking today on our records as to make sure that that's gone through each station. We do have a solid record here of the messages going out. So the first message of the alert itself went out 6 times, and then the other 2 with the sort of holding statement to make sure that, again, there's a tsunami advisory, went out twice, and then the other one was, I believe, once, the all clear. Again, we try to use other methods as well. Going back to the Minister's comment about phase 2, ironically enough, we were actually in a meeting yesterday when this happened with the procurement officer talking about the phase 2. And the phase 2, again, it's sponsored by the FCO, the Governor's Office, and it's it's an integrated approach. So it's talking SMS, social media and so forth. So it's a great app that people can download on their phone. Again, when this app should be coming out in April, May, But we strongly encourage everyone to download this app because, again, those notifications will come directly through that. It's one voice. We also strongly recommend, again, not sharing information that's not from a verifiable source. It's really critical for the response and to avoid panic across the Cayman Islands, that the information you're getting from is from the government, the www.caymanprepared.ky. And again, that's where the information should come from, and share it from there as opposed to any other sources you don't know are reliable.
And just as a follow-up, confirm for me what other aspects were involved in the emergency notification system. So aside from the radio interrupts, there would have been social media posts from hazard management.
Yeah.
There would have been CIG TV going on.
Yep.
What other things happened yesterday to help alert the public?
Okay, so we had the actual social media post and website update. Again, I think it was... sorry, make sure I get this time frame right. At 2:20 yesterday, so that was 10 minutes after the actual earthquake was felt, and that was between 2:20 and 2:23. We had all the Instagram, Facebook, and the website postings. We also did a press conference yesterday with everyone at the table here, and several interviews for CITV. And again, those went out throughout the day. I mean, I think the social media posts were carrying on throughout the day. And again, all in on the night. So we're also sharing posts about Red Cross shelters, about Water Authority, and every other thing. But again, just to make sure that public information was out there, and it is updated every 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on what the actual message was. Yeah, I mean, again, the website itself, it's a very good resource. We have all our earthquake information on there anyway to download, but it's a very, very good point of contact if you don't have social media. The website. And again, if you feel a very strong earthquake like we did yesterday, don't wait for notification. You need to make sure you evacuate vertically as much as possible, but also, again, have a family plan in place now for every eventuality, be it a fire. We had a fire only on Friday last week. That could have got worse. It didn't, fortunately. But again, family plans and work plans need to be very solid. Continuity of operations in a business needs to be very solid. So we're asking the public to make sure that they do have those plans in place if by chance we experience aftershocks or we have the same event in the future.
Good morning, everyone. You talked about no structural damage. We've seen a number of sinkholes popping up around the island as well as on our sister islands. Do you have a breakdown of how much sinkholes we have, the areas that the sinkholes appeared, and any possible cost for this damage?
Okay, so we do have a full breakdown of where the sinkholes have been identified so far. We have got our damage assessment teams out there on the ground now, from planning, from NRA, and also private individuals helping with that damage assessment. Now, that information is getting fed directly back into our hazard management office upstairs, so we can be monitoring it throughout live as soon as it gets entered in on the app. We don't have numbers, again, for financial yet. That will come. But again, we're working as part of the partial activation of the NEOC, the damage assessment. We also have economic continuity and other support teams that will actually help us identify that. Does that answer your question? Any other? Sorry.
So do you have a general area or anything that you can tell the public where to avoid if they have sinkholes?
No, I mean,
there were roadways that were also damaged during yesterday's event.
Yeah, I know the NRA have been working through that again very hard to fill those sinkholes on the land, on the actual roads. We're working with PWD to ensure that the public beach, for example, is filled. So they're quite random, spread out. Again, what we want to make sure, if by chance you see a sinkhole or severe damage to any infrastructure or any damage to infrastructure, report it back to our Facebook pages or 911. We do need to map those. We're actually doing an exercise today, mapping everything that we've got so far on a geographical map, so we can actually identify where the hotspots are. This is going to help in future, again, for certain hotspots, because, again, the ones that we're identifying from yesterday, a lot of them are historical data saying they're caves and so forth. So there is perhaps rationale while certain places are more likely to be sinkholes than others. But, again, we're asking the public to avoid the areas and report in if they're seeing them. The preliminary assessments, the preliminary assessments say no. There's definitely sinkholes, but again, our damage assessment team are out now, so we'll be reporting that back in. As soon as they report back in with that information, we'll make sure that becomes aware to the public and also on our website and our social media pages.
April Cummings from Radio Cayman. Two quick questions. Just could you confirm for me when that first radio interrupt was? And before I forget the second question, we've been sort of trained to expect the National Weather Service to give us the Cayman version of whatever the warning, watch, etc. is. One thing we didn't get from you yesterday, or that I couldn't find quickly, was that there actually was a tsunami warning.
Okay, the tsunami warning came out from our radio interrupt. Again, and this is the documentary here. We've got all the actual, the written narrative of that, and we can share that with you. That first one actually came out at 2:19 yesterday, judging by this data. So again, that should have interrupted all the radios. We're going to monitor today to make sure that actually did happen. We've heard it from a number of sources that they did come through, but
so there was information. It's
the information's
just the
there.
actual words "tsunami warning" were the words that I
there wasn't a
hear.
tsunami warning; it was an advisory.
Gotcha.
So
And
again,
so that's important for us to start learning that language of how it's going to be communicated to the public, so we know what it means.
Absolutely, no, I completely agree with that. So the first question about Mr. John Tibbetts, the Weather Authority. Can you
No,
just
it was the
repeat
same
that?
thing. We've over the years decided that our local confirmation, we don't just take what the Weather Service in the U.S. says. We take the ultimate confirmation is coming from our local source. So it's helpful for us to have that same process with you as well, because that is what people are looking for.
I completely agree. And again, the Weather Centre here are part of also the tsunami focal point as a hazard management. Again, in these kind of scenarios, we work very closely to verify with John, but at the same time, with that time frame, we just need to make sure those emergency notifications are out ASAP, because there is a tsunami potential.
Were there any areas of confusion in the official response, that things that that we could learn from?
Yeah, I mean, again, right now the assessment is ongoing. We'll be doing a full debrief on Friday as to what lessons learnt. That's going to be coming in. I think, again, I feel very confident it was a very robust response, given that both the social media and the emergency notification radio interrupt came through within 9-10 minutes. I will reiterate what the Premier said. If this had happened in the evening, it would have been a different story. There's no way we could have activated in that time. It was very lucky we were all in the building at one time. So again, there will be lessons learned from this, I have no doubt. We're going to be working very closely with the police. We're going to be working with all our stakeholders and the National Emergency Operations Centre to make sure that this, our response continues to be as effective and responsive as possible.
This question is for Mr. Walton. You said that the police resources were strained yesterday with the chaos that ensued with the traffic. What's the situation today? Are your troops out and about managing traffic? I also noted last night during the police advisory that you were telling motorists to follow instructions. Were you having difficulty managing that traffic in terms of people following the instructions?
I probably wouldn't use the word strain, but certainly would use the word challenged. It certainly was a challenging period. As you can imagine, so I immediately went into town and assessed what was happening there, and it's pretty much every single intersection was just congested. The difficulty was getting the traffic out of Georgetown, so people who wanted to leave could leave, and that was just taking hours. The reality is that we have a really good team of officers. The traffic department were out in full force, and we had them at the major intersections as best as we could, trying to manage that situation. In addition, we were using other staff as well to provide support to our around traffic management. As far as this morning, we brought in officers again, fairly sizable team again this morning at 7 o'clock, in addition to having officers remain on an extra few hours this morning who would have been on from overnight. We've already had our command meeting at 8 o'clock this morning, just discussing our resources and how that looks. And I'm fairly confident, based on the resources we have today, that we can manage that situation.
Actually, can I just interrupt very quickly? Just to mention a bit more about the NEOC response. We worked very, very closely with the sister islands, so the district administrator in Cayman Brac, as well as Little Cayman and the clinical nurse over there. Their response over there was fantastic, and I have to give full respect to them. They had the teams out there doing damage assessments very early on. Aston Rutty Centre was open very early, and I think at one stage we counted 300 people in there, as well as having to evacuate the Faith Hospital. So again, full respect to the sister islands, because they did a great, tremendous job. We also had to deal with a bit of misinformation from there, and we had to verify it again to make sure before we send out certain alerts. We did receive an issue with a receding sea line. So again, just to make sure that our information is reliable, we need to cover those grounds, and we're working very closely with our CIPS to make sure we could identify that source and see if we could verify the information before it was released. Fortunately, it turned out not to be an issue, but again, it was just something we had to make sure that we're getting full facts on before we made any decisions.
Another question for you, Daniel. The situation with the Water Authority, that obviously improved after there was a little bit of confusion as to what they were doing, and then they sort of straightened that out, and they've been issuing alerts all day and being perfectly up to date on their social media. However, the private company, Cayman Water, hasn't, and all of us have agreed we weren't able to contact a single person at Cayman Water to find out what was actually happening to the water supply in West Bay. They put nothing out last night at all. So I know it's not government, so you don't control it. But do you have some kind of communication or partnership with them so that you can get them in the loop? Because it did seem to be
they're actually in the loop. Okay, so interesting you say that. Again, I haven't heard that to date, but we appreciate that comment. They form part of the utilities emergency support team. So under that, you have Cayman Water, you have Water Authority, who would lead the actual emergency support team. You have CUC and so forth, Home Gas. They've been reporting through the EST to the Water Authority as to updates, but they, again, maybe haven't been making them public enough, and we can actually address that.
I mean, as a resident of West Bay, we certainly didn't have any interruptions that I'm aware of in terms of significant downtime on any of our utilities. So that may be a reason why they didn't actually put out any formal notification. But certainly, as I said, I haven't heard anything from my constituents in that regard about interruption of water during this time.
And with respect to the Water Authority, there was absolutely no confusion with respect to the Water Authority. The confusion started because someone put out a piece of misinformation about the Water Authority shutting down its operations. That was not generated by Cayman Water Authority. It's one of the bits of mischief that you're constantly having to deal with. What happened subsequently, what happened actually was the Water Authority took a decision not to disconnect various people who had not paid. And they put that notification out. Subsequently, however, they started to lose pressure at the plant, which was a clear indication to them they had massive leaks somewhere. And so they tried for a while to avoid any cutoffs at all. People were getting low pressure in certain areas. And so they started a systematic shutdown of various areas to isolate where the actual leaks were. I was in contact with the director, trying to deal with some of the fallout from all of this. So I'm very well aware of what they've done, and they've done a massively good job over the course of the evening. They brought in all of their staff. They're still working to make sure that there is minimum a disruption as they possibly could. And I think most people this morning were able to have water for their showers. So again, I just want to commend them, because I have a very good idea of how much work went on in very difficult circumstances all through the night, so that the public would have the convenience of water this morning.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, thank you so much for coming out. Unless there are any final burning questions.
Burning question.
Burning?
Very burning.
Last
one. Thank you. Is there any government agency that members of the public can contact for structural assessments, to check for damage, that kind of thing? Who do they talk to?
Again, I mean, a lot of this is going through Public Works Department and NRA. I think with structural damage, to get assessments, If they're private buildings, they need to be assessed privately. But public buildings, again, through the NEAC, will work with Public Works Department to make sure those are fit for purpose. The Planning Department are actually doing assessments today as well, so we'll try and combine all that. But to contact Hazard Management for now, and we can work through the NEAC to make sure the Public Works Department are dealing with that.
Thank you so much for coming out, and thank you for taking part.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. You have heard that post-press briefing that involved the governor, the premier of the Cayman Islands, the director of hazard management, Cayman Islands, Deputy Commissioner, Mr. Kurt Walton, Minister for Home Affairs, Honorable Tara Rivers, speak about the yesterday's activities and the ongoing situation here in the Cayman Islands. Based on what we're hearing there and even feedback from the public as well, it appears as if things worked as planned in most instances. I believe, again, that the two issues that were paramount in people's discussions had to do with the traffic on the roads, and it also seems as if the disruption to water supply. One, I would say, was more man-made. That is the traffic on the roads of the Cayman Islands at the time. And the other in relation to the water supply. All necessary precautions had to be made in that instance, and it is important. A couple of other observations that I have. The talk was, the whole issue of damage assessment was also discussed at the press briefing. And we need to make a distinction between damage assessment when it comes to government-owned properties and damage assessment that takes place in relation to privately owned properties as well. I think it is extremely important from a standpoint of data collection, because we know that after Hurricane Ivan, for instance, one of the problems that we had in terms of assessment was that we simply didn't have data that was needed. So it is important for us to have data in relation to the damage that has taken place, not only the monetary damage, but the extent and the varieties of damages that occurred as well, which leads me to the next issue when it comes to insurance as well. Not sure what the insurance situation is in the Cayman Islands, the individual insurers. I hope no one ends up in a situation where they end up having to make a claim to their insurance company only to find out that they may have insurance for hurricane damage, but not necessarily for earthquakes as well. So you may want to read the fine print in your insurance policy to determine whether or not you are covered in the event that you have damage. I believe we have a caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, O.C. Kenneth, back again.
Good morning again, yes.
I was just sitting calmly in my car listening to the press conference and then your few comments afterwards. And I hate to be the person of bearer of bad news, but I don't think it's fair to say that everything went according to plan. And if that was according to plan on what happened yesterday, then our plan isn't efficient. There's going to be a number of analysis, and probably it's not the best time in the world to give negative criticisms, but there's many things that happened yesterday that I know the public wants to talk about and analyze, because the conference I got just now made it seem like it all went smoothly, and that's not the truth. There's so many things that went wrong that up to a point where part Caymanians were being turned away with a threat of tsunami from the government building, when there's no direction as to where to go in a tsunami threat. I mean, my whole community down in Central is right next to the government building, which is owned by the people of this country. And when they had the threat, everybody knows an earthquake, get out of your house. The first natural thing is when the tsunami went around, everybody said, well, which is the closest building? Go over to the government building, and they were turned away. Stuff like that needs to be talked about. And the fact that they're sending out alerts, which came out via the phone, like 15 minutes later from when it was actually sent out. 15 minutes could be the difference of life and death. And then you have it coming from a different time zone because the phone chip that they're using is from the UK. So you get mixed messages. There's a number of things that went wrong, and I'll leave it with this.
But in if I can interrupt for a second, in terms of the time difference, I think Mr. Boxall explained here that certain analysis had to be done before you could give it out. So whether or not it was coming from the Cayman Islands or coming, from elsewhere, the analysis had to be once the initial quake took place. The analysis had to be done to determine whether or not a tsunami would occur and what the extent of it could possibly be.
And I guess there's a delay in time in respect to that analysis, which I accept.
And in relation to the government administration building and access to it, my question would be, was that when people had reoccupied the building, or at the point that they were still outside the building? Oh
no, when they were trying to reoccupy, when other civil servants were going inside as a precautionary measure from the tsunami threat.
Okay.
Which is a big concern. And the other one that you just highlighted before I got on the call, which was the whole assessment of private homes. Now, I'm an advocate for those who are less fortunate and who don't have the means like many other expatriates in Cayman. But there's a lot of low-income people who may have concerns about structural damage, and the response was, that's your own responsibility to look for your own structural damage. We don't have homeowners who are engineers to see whether or not their house is in that kind of state, and they don't have the monies to call an engineer to come and spend $1,000 to check their house. This is something that I think they should have had an answer for, because there's many people across this country that are Caymanian that have their home, and that's all they have because of the state of things in respect to cost of living and the like, and can't afford to say, well, my house looks fine, but they don't know that it's not fine. So we have to put something in place to say, okay, then, if you are seriously concerned, if you see signals, we will have somebody available to at least give you a preliminary check, and anything further than that, you're going to have to find the cost. Because what do I tell an 80-year-old woman who's living at home with a helper that she sees a crack in the wall and that has no money coming in, that must go in?
But wouldn't they normally have access to the NAU? We would hope and trust that some needs assessment unit and what they're doing in terms of ensuring that people are properly shuttered and everything, that responsibility could be passed over to them in the instance of those persons who are semi-indigent or don't have the financial wherewithal, but are already receiving government assistance.
Now, that's a perfect answer, OC. Maybe you should be the premier, because if that was the answer they gave, and then there's a solution to say there is a department that will look into this, but that's not the answer they gave. The answer was that if it's a private home, it's their own responsibility to check it. So that means all those persons who can't afford to check if their house is safe can't get it done, and that is my concern. See, I'm trying not to be the bearer of bad news, but it's my job as a member of the opposition to analyze their answers and their preparation, and I'm not satisfied with much of the answers I heard on the press briefing. But there'll be more time for analysis and further shows. But I am worried about those who are most less fortunate, who can't afford to make these necessary safety checks for their own lives. And we're not thinking about them. Yet again, as always, the poorer class of people that are Caymanian are being left behind, not prepared for the answer. And I'm not happy with that. But anyway, I'll leave it. I'll see you on Friday morning.
Okay, definitely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. One of our listeners has written in and said, "Good morning, sir. I wish to let the people who were on the firing line yesterday that I am very thankful for their efforts. Traffic was handled and water supply restored by hard work. Thanks to all. Most important, we should be thankful to the merciful God as well. And certainly that resonates quite well, and I'm sure that a lot of people would agree and have given thanks to their God and will continue to give thanks as well to them. Again, one area that I still think needs clarification, the whole issue of schools contacting parents and saying, come to pick up your child from school. When that announcement was made, whether it was made after the all clear was given, whether it was made before the tsunami warning effect, that it is extremely important because people have concerns of where you're taking a child from a safe environment, putting them in an unsafe environment because you're stuck in traffic. And we know that all roads in the Cayman Islands are coastal roads. All roads in the Cayman Islands are coastal roads because we're a small island, 22 miles long and about 7 miles wide at its widest point. That means there are some areas that are narrower than that as well. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the very busy roads of the Cayman Islands into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling and Dwayne Banks at 12:15 for talk today. And belated happy birthday to Mr. Rennie Barnes and to Miss Bessie Thompson as well, who celebrated birthdays on the 26th for Rennie Barnes, 28th for Miss Bessie Thompson. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. Fidelity Bank, for all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news. Access to information. Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team. Today's biggest news.
The deadline is up today for the upgrade of the National Emergency Notification System project tender, which is out to support effective public safety communications. The proposal says, given the increasing frequency of man-made and natural disasters, as well as the diverse method that people receive information, there is a growing need to expand and integrate the number of emergency notification channels. The deadline is noon today. You can head to government's Bonfire Hub portal for more information. This comes as Cayman is recovering from a 7.7 magnitude earthquake that struck at 2:20 on Tuesday. At a press conference